What's up, my friends? I took a $25 shot at winning $1 million on Underdog Fantasy. Let's check out this mock draft and how it ended up. All right, so you see me right here. I am at the 1.11 pick, Donuts. I'm going to have the turnaround at the pick 14. So I felt good about this draft spot. I really want to be one of the top four or put me at the back end of the round. I think the turnaround position this year in this area is a phenomenal one. Now, my goal going into the Best Ball Mania draft is to try to get as many people that will score as many touchdowns as possible due to the half point per reception format. And I'm also trying to team stack. Listen, there are 155,999 teams you have to beat out to take first place to win $1 million. You take your $25 yen or something like this, expect to lose it, and go for broke. So that's my goal. I try team stacking, and I will be team stacking a lot of these drafts, hoping that I have 4 or 5 guys from one team that ends up being a top 3 scoring offense. It's the team that averages 32 points per game or something ridiculous. And I think the Packers have that upside. So you'll see with my first 2 picks, kind of contrarian, going very early with Aaron Jones and Devonta Adams to team stack, knowing that later in the draft, I'll be able to get Aaron Rodgers at pick 94. Trying to team stack, and I know I can shelf my quarterback position until around 8 or 9. Now, let's see how it got executed. So I was able to take Aaron Jones, Devonta Adams. I didn't miss out much here with Cam Akers, not a believer there. Stephon Diggs would have been a fine choice, but then I would have wanted to stack Josh Allen, and I did not want to use a 4th or 5th pick here to get Josh Allen, which is right around the rounds you'll see him going this season, I believe, based on my ADP chart that I have pinned in my Twitter profile. So in my Twitter profile, I have a pinned tweet. Go ahead, click that, and I'll actually post that in the comment section. And you can see right here, Devonta Adams pick 16. I was able to grab him at 14. Nick Chubb was behind Aaron Jones, but he went in this draft, so I took Aaron Jones, grabbed Devonta Adams, and you'll see the rest of these players I was just talking about. Josh Allen right around pick 45, and what I did with this Google Doc is I have downloaded the Underdog Fantasy ADPs. I will update this one time per week with my preferred targets and fades based on draft position only. That is all that matters is do you fade them or do you buy them at their draft positions? Now, I know based on this ADP chart that I can get Aaron Rodgers way down here at pick 93.5 just about. So my goal is to stack up the Packers offense, hope they're top 3 scoring offense, and then invest heavily there, hoping that I end up getting some of these guys at a bargain. You know, Devonta Adams likely would be going right around pick 5, 6 in this draft if there weren't so many fears. Aaron Rodgers probably would be the 4th or 5th quarterback off the board if there weren't so many fears, meaning he'd go in round 6 or so. But I'm going to get him 2, 3 rounds later. I got Devonta Adams maybe 6 picks early. So let's take a peek at the NFL Study Hub. Any of my Draft Kit members actually get access to this. What I did is I went to the wide receiver position. This is on the website, teamriseorfall.com. I'm going to sort by receiving touchdowns last year, and you will see Aaron Rodgers hooked up with Devonta Adams 18 times in just 14 games, a target market share of 33.59%. That led the NFL, and I want to show you this too, and he did this. Devonta Adams led the fantasy football in both PPR and standard scoring in just 14 games. When I sort the market share target column, you'll actually see him have the highest market share in the NFL as well. Now, when we slide over to running backs, I want to show you one cool thing too. So not only was Aaron Jones a top 5 running back in both PPR and standard, but last season, my friends, he had the 6th most passing targets per game. And now there's no Jamal Williams. He's gonzo Jamal Williams is in Detroit. So we have Aaron Jones backed up by A.J. Dillon, a guy who's going to stick between the tackles all season. So I think Aaron Jones potentially gets another target or 2. Aaron Jones was I believe my 9th rated running back. Aaron Rodgers, my 7th highest ranked quarterback who I'm going to get much later. I'm going to get him right around down where you'll see some of these other quarterbacks get taken. Devonta Adams, my number 2. We saw Tyreek go ahead. All right, you can see the draft clock coming back around to me, and here you're going to see me try to gobble up as many touchdowns as I can. I tried to take running backs here where I could just go heavy running backs early, Devonta Adams for touchdown equity, and then spend the next 6 picks or so just getting as many upside wide receiver type picks as I can. I don't think the running back position is great outside these top volume guys. It's just a bunch of super volatile picks this year. So while, David Montgomery and you'll see Josh Jacobs here go, while they might not be the most exciting picks this season, I am grabbing guys who will get tremendous volume this year as long as they stay healthy. We saw last year Josh Jacobs have 61% of the snaps, but he still had, I believe, 100% of all carries inside the 5-yard line. I'll show you that using the study hub here in 1 minute. And he was a high-volume red zone running back, had 12 rushing touchdowns. It's just David Montgomery had 8 rushing touchdowns, same thing. Nobody in the red zone last year competed with either of these guys. I believe Devonte Parker only had 17 carries inside the 20, while Josh Jacobs had around 70 total touches. And vice versa, we saw for David Montgomery, I think the next closest guy had like 6 or 7 touches inside the 20. So I went back to the NFL Study Hub. I'll show you that right now. Here is Aaron Jones. I was talking about him a little bit earlier. Again, a guy who now Jamal Williams is gone, and you have no competition potentially inside the red zone. You have very little competition in the passing game. Now, I clicked on Las Vegas for the running backs, and you'll see it. Here it is. Josh Jacobs, 64 carries inside the 20. Devonte Parker only had 17. No one competes. Had 100% of the carries inside the 5-yard line. Not a single running back on the team had a single carry inside the 5 last year. Josh Jacobs, I got in the 4th round. I felt great about that pick, and you're about to see the other running back, David Montgomery, and why I was so happy about him. And he ended up being one of those guys inside the red zone that also had no competition. There it is, Chicago. So when we look at Chicago in the red zone, David Montgomery had 44 carries inside the 20. Tariq Cohen had a single carry, and Artavis Pierce had a single carry. Nobody else had a carry inside the 20-yard line last year for the Bears. So I gobbled up 2 running backs who will have very little, if any, red zone competition. Those are my first 4 picks, hoping for double-digit touchdowns and health all year, and I'm trying to take down $1 million. So you got to go heavy on something, and I went heavy in touchdown equity, and I'm going to go heavy. You'll see it later with the Packers offense with a few more picks. Let's move ahead. All right, here we go. So my next 2 picks coming up here at the 5-6 turn. TJ Hawkinson at tight end, and I felt great about the pick because when you see where the rest of the tight ends go, kind of got one of my top 5 tight end picks, and I feel like I got him at slightly a bargain here because Kyle Pitts went ahead of him, thank goodness, and I had no shot at George Kittle, Darren Waller, so I got TJ Hawkinson at a really good pick, and you'll see some other tight ends go here a little bit later that I just don't feel comfortable about, and I sent out a video for Best Ball, and I talked about TJ Hawkinson kind of is like the last of a tier, so you've got Kelsey by himself, Waller, Kittle together, and I think you've probably got Pitts and Hawkinson next, and Mark Andrews, and then big drop-off after those top 6. And you'll see it here with my quick pick draft sheets. There's TJ Hawkinson down here, kind of blurred out behind my camera here. And then mid-round targets, I have TJ Hawkinson there as well. Noah Fant I could have gotten later, and I'll find that out as the draft goes on. But I felt really good about TJ Hawkinson. It's not bad. And right here, you look, he's right behind Mark Andrews ahead of Kyle Pitts for me. So I felt like I got him at a steal. And then next, I'm going to show you my other pick with Kenny Galladay. I'm going to look at, oh, by the way, one other thing with TJ Hawkinson. My man was 3rd in the NFL in touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. Hopefully, he is the red zone option for Detroit. I don't think they have a running back that can punch it into the end zone. We saw Swift stink at that last year. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe Hawkinson's going to be that guy inside the 5. He had the 3rd most touchdowns inside the 5 last year at the tight end position. Don't sleep on TJ Hawkinson. Now let's take a peek at Detroit again, and I went to the wide receiver position because I wanted you to see Kenny Galladay. Even in an injury-shortened season, I wanted to show you one extremely important thing, and I think this is why they brought him into the Giants. His downfield air yards per reception, astronomical. His ADOT was astronomical last year at 14.6. And here are those 2 stats. 15 yards per reception through the air for Kenny G. Downfield targets galore. And do you want to see just how important those are for this offense and Daniel Jones? Let's take a peek. I am going to filter the wide receiver position real quick, and I think you'll appreciate seeing this. I am going to live filter this position so that I am looking at people who get targets per game, at least 4 or more in the NFL, and then I sorted their air yards per reception. Now, I know a lot of people don't like air yards, and I know some do, but when I sorted for players that get at least 4 targets per game, Kenny G last year was passed up by only Courtland Sutton. Only Courtland Sutton, who had 6 targets per game. So when you look at this list, he is one of the biggest downfield threats in the NFL. Big body, he's strong, and I think that Kenny G could be exactly what Daniel Jones needs, someone that can get over the top. We have not really seen Slayton or Shepard or any of these other players there. Ingram is a fine option over the middle. Darius Slayton is down here at 12.6 ADOT, and we have Kenny G at 14.6. And Darius Slayton at 11.84 air yards per reception compared to Kenny G's at 15. So a clear separation. And I'm thinking Kenny G has, what we saw 2 years ago, 1,000+ yards. We saw 9 touchdowns in his second season. Can he get back to that? I'm not sure, but I'm willing to take a shot at it. You see me coming back around here. This is kind of the area where I knew I had to take Rodgers. There were about 5 players that I wanted other than Aaron Rodgers at this spot. So I'm going to show you real quick. I fast forward the draft here. I took Aaron Rodgers here because I kind of wanted to force this guy to, sift through the rubble and let the gold trickle out into my bag here. And I think that is what happens. I think Goddard is fool's gold. Not a big fan of Gallup unless you have Dak Prescott. Now, again, I talked about, other people in this draft who are veterans, and this is one of them right here. And he did a very, very good job stacking an offense, which is what you're seeing me do in a second, too. He's got CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Michael Gallup, just hoping to gobble up a top 3, top 4 offense, as many touchdowns and yards equity as he can in a single team. And he's kind of doing that right there with Sanders and Goddard on Philly. And you're going to see me try to attempt to do this something similar here as well. And you'll see it as this unveils itself. So here we go. I've got this next pick here. And once he took Gallup and Goddard, it kind of allowed me to have 3 or 4 guys I was choosing between. And you'll see I went with Deebo Samuel. I'm hoping for big upside here. I think the only thing he's really missed out on over last season too was his touchdowns, right? Yeah, I think he only finished with 3. Big play upside, big body, can't be tackled in the open field. He's kind of like A.J. Brown light, right? That's not going to sit well with some people, but I think Deebo Samuel has A.J. Brown type upside if he can put it together. Hopefully get some good quarterback play. One offense I was really looking at this year was Joe Burrow, and hopefully stacking up this offense where he's got Jamar, T. Higgins, and check it out, Tyler Boyd. You have another team right here, Austin Vander here, whomever that is, did a very good job stacking together an offense. And you'll continue to see this from the seasoned veterans in this massive tournament. They understand you need to go really heavy on an offense and hope that you have the opportunity to have chosen multiple players from one team that is just fantasy juice all year for every position and scoring touchdowns every game, tons of touchdowns, never have a bad game, just a great offense, and hopefully he has that for himself. And you'll see a couple other teams here, and we'll review some at the end, but you'll see some of these teams, man, they are stacking up as much as they can. Here's one, DK Metcalf with Russell Wilson. Just understand that this is very much like a DFS tournament of over 100,000 people. Now, again, I'm talking about the beauty of Joe Burrow, and I tweeted this out the other day, Jamar Chase, 48, 60, and 80 is where you have to choose them to get this offense, and then Burrow at 94. Now, when we go back and we look at it, let's take a peek. So he ended up being able, where is it, Vander? He ended up being able to get Chase at 41, had to go early there, and then he had to take Higgins at 55. So I had to take Chase, Higgins, both about 5 picks early, and then did the same with Tyler Boyd. In fact, went about, looks like 9 picks early to get Tyler Boyd, and then he took Joe Burrow about 12 picks early to get him. So very much kind of what I felt like I had to do with Aaron Rodgers. I took him a little early so I can get my offensive stack, and let's keep going. I think this is a really cool draft so far, and hopefully this will be super helpful for you. And here's another one I had on this video where I kind of wanted to show people, here's the Dallas offense, right? The Dallas offense, who we saw this other team over here stack up Dak, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. I believe he takes Jarwin later. And here it is. You've got to take Dak at 58. Lamb 37, Gallup at 90. He reached for Gallup a little early, in my opinion, but he did it because he wanted to ensure that he had stacked up an offense. And if he is hedging his bets here, he's saying if Gallup is worth the money here, you know who's probably not? Either Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. Since he went Lamb and Gallup, I'm assuming he thinks these guys are not going to hit their value. You can't have all of these players hit their value and Dak not be QB1. So by just going heavy on an offense, he's inherently saying I think Dak is going to outproduce being QB5 at pick 58.2. And if you want this Google Doc, it's totally free in my pinned tweet. You can get that at DFSnDonuts, and you'll have all this information in front of you, including my highlighted targets and fades based on current ADPs. All right, let's move on to the next draft pick. You see me at the 9-10 turnaround. I wanted Melvin Gordon. I thought he was going to drop to me. I was so excited. This one sniped me and kind of threw me for a loop. I think I rebounded fine here, though. I was able to draft two players that I really, really like in the middle of the drafts here at Laviska Shenault, who I've been talking about on Twitter, talked about on another person's podcast recently. I have high hopes for him. 600 yards, 5 touchdowns as a rookie. I think he is going to be peppered with targets this year. And I know that Marvin Jones is there now. That's fine. I think he might even open up some of this offense over the top for Laviska. And Devonte Parker, hopefully the number one over Jalen Waddle. Hopefully the number one for Tua out there in Miami. And I think there's some upside there. And I highlighted these guys. Here's Laviska at pick 95. Here is Devonte Parker at pick 115. I was able to get both of them. I reached a little bit for Devonte Parker, but it wasn't going to circle back to me in time in the draft. But I did take exactly where he's supposed to be. I did take Laviska Shenault exactly where I wanted to take him. So I filled out the rest of my player queue, and I'll show you kind of where I am with my roster currently. I have Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback, my 3 running backs, which I took in rounds 1, 3, and 4, Aaron Jones, Monty, and Josh Jacobs, is because I didn't want to take any more running backs for a long time, and you're going to see why. I wanted to focus on the wide receiver position after that, and I did so, and I was able to get TJ Hawkinson, my 5th-ranked tight end, as the 6th tight end pick. And you'll kind of see it real quick. Let me show the wide receiver position here. I believe I dragged it down so you can see the rest of his picks. I've got Adams, Galladay, Debo, and Laviska. And let's see where the rest of this draft goes to. And Devonte Parker, I was going through my quick pick draft sheets, trying to identify who I wanted to pick next. Looked at my late round targets as well. I don't want to show that stuff live. Here we go. Rashad Bateman went right before I wanted him too. I was even thinking about going with Marvin Jones, but I ended up going Carson Wentz. I put out a TikTok video, threw it on Instagram as well. One of my higher viewed videos. A lot of people, I think, are intrigued by Carson Wentz. Former top 10 production in Philly, reunited with Frank Reich, who was the QB Wentz whisperer back, I think, 2018 when we saw him last together. And we get him back there now. Quick, short passing game. They're going to protect him with a great running game. I think Carson Wentz has tremendous upside this year. A bevy of very young offensive targets to throw the football to. 2 decent tight ends. Mole Cox was quietly a top 5 analytical producer at multiple categories. My friend at Smola DS from Draft Sharks, whom what is one of the best fantasy football 365 days per year websites. All of my draft kit purchasers, my subs, it's just $10, by the way. You are able to get a $20 discount to their website if you are one of my subscribers. So down below description section, just give it a look. You can click it and it brings up like an informational page. It's the draft kit. Just click that. It doesn't lead you to a purchase or anything. You can look at it and look at all the cool stuff you get with it, and I hope you give it a peek. So Carson Wentz, high upside guy. I think that, there's potential here. 4,200 yards, 28 touchdowns, run another 200 yards or so, 2-3 scoring touchdowns, and you've got a guy who's, borderline probably 10-12. I really only need him to show up a couple times this season if Aaron Rodgers lets me down for a few weeks. Filling out the rest of my queue, I must have made my choice. Let's take a peek. So I had Devin Singletary. That's right. I took Singletary about 3 rounds after we saw Zach Moss go. Unfortunately, there was no way for me to get Moss, and I ended up going Devin Singletary. You'll see I'm going to try to get 5 running backs per draft is kind of my goal. Singletary ended up being my 4th running back. He had 54% of the carries last year, 54% of the snaps in Buffalo. Zach Moss actually outsnapped him the second half of the year, though. So maybe there's a changing of the guard. I think that might even be better for Devin Singletary. I think it's going to be a better change of pace back and get a few more pass receptions this year. Maybe break some long runs like we saw him do in his rookie year, which he did not do as much last year because I think he just was not ready for that type of workload. Jared Cook, who I think everybody's sleeping on, I'm going to be adding him to my risers, my late round picks, and I will update my Google Doc to show you that he's one of my targets based on current ADPs. Jared Cook is taking over as the starting tight end out there alongside of or battling Donald Parham, who I think is an athletic freak for San Diego, but he's not going to be ready to take over tight end 1 role there in San Diego. And we've seen San Diego be a very, very fruitful landing spot for tight ends. And Jared Cook, I think, is somebody who could shock, could be a phenomenal second tight end in best ball this year. And I love that I was able to get him, whom I think has a same floor and ceiling type combination, maybe even a higher ceiling than Mike Gesicki, maybe even higher ceiling than Evan Ingram, who's battling a million wide receivers out there in New York. I think he has a higher ceiling than Irv Smith for sure, because this offense is going to run the ball more than they're going to throw it. And then Robert Tonyan, I kind of wanted, but he went earlier than I was prepared to pick him. I was thinking about taking him right here so that I could have Rodgers, Adams, Tonyan, and Aaron Jones. And if I had all 4 of those guys, guess what? I would have accumulated 65% of all touchdowns last year on the team. Just like that. I would have had the entire offense. So if the Packers score, for every 3 touchdowns the Packers score, I would have hopefully had 2 of them. Aaron Jones runs one in, the next one's a throw, and it must have gone to Tonyan or Adams. How dope would that have been? So didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but it's okay. It's okay. We move forward, and I ended up pivoting as quickly as I could. Troutman went before him as well. Not a fan of that Troutman pick there. I think Jared Cook, a tremendous upside, and I got him, I believe, as tight end 14 or 15. So I was very happy about that. I'll be adding him to my ADP list. Here we go. Let's check out the rest of this draft. On the clock again for my next pick, and you'll see I'm again going to try to grab these upside wide receivers because I want them to fill up my wide receiver spots with guys who could potentially surprise. Traequan Smith, likely the number 2 this year. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Traequan Smith might not have as much competition. We don't know who's throwing the football, Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, but potentially both could be upgrades over Drew Brees at this point in their career. Traequan Smith, we did see have some decent games last year. Whatever, I'm going for the home run threat. If he has a couple games this year where he has 100 yards and a score, that might be just enough for me to get 2 or 3 starts out of him in the Underdog fantasy format. Here we go. I've got 2 picks turn around. Darius Slayton, Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman, I think, is going a little underdrafted. I get that it's an RBC C out there in New York, and everybody's all over Michael Carter. I like him as well, but I think Tevin Coleman could surprise, have a couple starts this year maybe. Maybe even opens the season as a starter. Michael Carter is brought along slowly alongside of Zach Wilson. I have no freaking clue, but when we're talking around 16, 17, 18, I'm hoping for upside. Darius Slayton, same thing. I'm hoping he bounced back from injury. He is opposite of Kenny G, and I hope that Kenny G opens up the offense for Darius Slayton, who we saw have a really, really interesting rookie year back when he was not the number 1 and then had trouble and injuries last year. So year 3 for Slayton, is he going to end up being a great number 2 option across from Kenny G? I don't know. But what I really liked having the opportunity to do, and unfortunately I did not get Daniel Jones, but I did get 2 players from an offense that I think is on the rise. And again, you're trying to stack up offenses. It does not always need to be just the, one team and all the players that you can get from that team. You could still stack up other offenses, and then, let's say you have 6 picks out of your 18 from 2 teams. What if those 2 teams are both top 5 scoring offenses? Now you've got 6 guys in your lineup, potentially in your starting lineup, only from top 5 offenses. That's how you beat out 155,999 people for $1 million. And I took shots there. All right, so my last 2 picks on the board. Let's see if I can just bring them up quickly for you. I'm going to scroll down. My last 2 choices, I ended up getting Marlon Mack at pick 17, and I took MVS here at pick 18 to finish out my lineup. Then I went through and looked at the rest of the teams. Felt very good about my draft. Felt good about my roster. You can see my running backs here. So quarterbacks were Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz. Running backs were Jones, Montgomery, Jacobs. That felt great about those three. Then I had Singletary, Coleman, and Marlon Mack. Hopefully he is some type of backup role and has some type of upside with a hopefully healthy Achilles. Listen, round 17 equity, I'm there. And then wide receivers ended up being Devonta Adams, Kenny Galladay, Deebo Samuel, who I really like those three. And then Laviska, Devonte Parker, Traequan Smith, Darius Slayton, MVS. I think my wide receivers are my strength of this draft, even though those three running backs were pretty solid as well. TJ Hawkinson, top 5. When I go up and down my roster, I'm in love with it. And I know I'm super biased, and that's how we all should be when we finish these drafts. I hope this was a helpful way to identify kind of my strategy going into this. As I know it's a little bit different than some of the mock drafts you see around the YouTubes, but hopefully this is one that you enjoyed, and I'm able to do this again for you in the future. Leave a comment down below if you appreciated this format, and I'll do it again. Also, again, couple house cleaning. Down below, description section, 2 areas you should click. Number 1, the draft kit area. Number 2, you can click the free link. It says like donuts, free guides, free draft kits. Click it. You want a free draft kit? You click that link, just follow that. You want to check out the draft kit, check out some of my DFS stuff, whatever, you can click some of the other description links. If you want the free Google Doc, that is with all the ADPs and my targeted fades, targets at their ADPs, that will be in the comment reply on the YouTube or reply section or whatever, comment section on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. I do daily streams and daily videos, and I'll be doing this all over the next 3 months of summer as we lead into the DFS NFL season. So best of luck, my friends. I'll see you on the inside. Thanks a lot for today.